Hello YouTubers. Today I'm going to give an initial review of my attempt to power my kayak. This is a Pelican. It's the 10-foot fishing kayak made by Pelican. And I want to give a special thanks to Manco330 who gave me the initial information on how to shorten the shaft on the trolling motor to make it fit the kayak better. And to Tom Kirkman1 who showed how to adapt the side mount, which I have originally attempted to use on the kayak. Anyway, as you take a look at the kayak, it's just a standard Pelican. Over here is where I mounted my fish finder. Drilled a hole through the boat in that area, ran the lines through there, and used a silicone adhesive to make sure that I had a good waterproof seal. Up here toward the front hatch, which is the only hatch the boat comes with, we can look inside there and you can see where the small 8 amp hour battery is located, and the transducer is also located there for the fish finder. Considering putting a second hatch back here behind the seat, which will give me another storage area and perhaps some access to the side so I can put in an anchor line. Anyway, the trolling motor. This is the trolling motor that I put together. I cut the shaft down so that it would fit, made the fittings out of PVC, and this is a small stowaway marine deep cycle battery that I got at Academy. So if we look at this mount, it was designed so that the mount would fit in the existing fishing pole holder, such as this. I washed it so you had a little bit of water come out. And you can see how that fit in there. I put my crate in the back storage area right back here, and I mounted the battery so that it sat more to this side to help balance it. A couple things I didn't like about this setup. First of all, even with the battery scooted to the right side, it made the boat lean somewhat to the left with the trolling motor. The second issue I had was the trolling motor didn't seem to give me a lot of control. I wasn't happy with the steering or the handling on the kayak, and I think that might be because of the location of where the motor is. Being closer toward the midships area of the kayak, I don't think it provides enough steerage, where if it's mounted on the rear, then as you turn the motor, you're going to push the stern of the kayak and get a lot better control, I believe. The other problem that I had was going into high speed, which this is a 5-speed motor, that mount would tend to lift up somewhat. This caused an imbalance. Not too awful bad. I connected a couple bungees to go across the top of the PVC to help hold it down, and then a light pressure on my arm could keep it down, but I still wasn't happy with that. 1-inch pipe with the connector, so we're about to take it to the lake and give it a try. Well, time to move on to revision or modification 3. The second attempt, by mounting the trolling motor in the rod holder with a much tighter fit, was a lot better than the first modification or the original design, but I was still not satisfied with it. It seemed not to have the steering that I would like, and also it caused some instability when going to the highest speed setting or attempting to turn relatively sharply. So what I've decided to do is to go ahead and go to a rear mount. Up to this point, no permanent modifications have been made to the kayak. That's changing now. What I've done is I've taken the kayak mount and I cut off the back piece. Therefore, this section is flat. That's going to mount back here on the transom, like so. I wanted to drill 4 holes. You can see those 4 holes, but those 4 holes didn't quite line up the way I wanted them to. Here are the forward holes. The aft holes would have been right here next to this drain plug, and I decided that that would not provide adequate support, and if anything at all, it would cause structural problems. So there's 2 holes drilled here. and the 2 holes drilled here so that this mount will fit just like this, and bolts, washers, and rubber washers in order to help seal will go through to hold the trolling motor here. Now, to gain access on this kayak, in the back there's that small, I don't know, 3/4 inch plug. That's not adequate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a 2-inch, I can find out where I put it, a 2-inch plug. I'll drill a 2-inch hole right here so that I can have access to those nuts and bolts. And then I'll put in a 2-inch plug, this is it right here, which will fill, there you go, that 2-inch plug will fill the gap and not allow water in. But if I want to remove that mount at a later date, then I can simply pull the plug out. The only thing I don't really like about the plug is it's going to extend somewhat due to the wing nut on the end, but I don't think that that's going to be too big of a deal overall. Maybe I'm trying to get a little too anal with trying to make everything just as smooth as possible. After we get the mount done, then we're going to work on the steering and the controls. I've removed the rheostat. Today I'm going to go to an appliance store and see if I can find an appliance knob which will fit on the end here. This is the finished product. It's my Pelican 10X fishing kayak with the Minn Kota 30 pound thrust trolling motor mounted on the transom. Let's take a look. As you see, the shaft was cut down. I showed that in a previous video in order to fit. The transom mount was also cut to fit. It was bolted in place with 2 bolts on the top and 2 bolts just behind the shaft. Let's see, I think I can move that up so you can see those. There you are. There's the 2 bolts right under here that hold that in place. Those were sealed using washers, rubber washers, and silicone in order to give it a solid seal. There we go. Got that to release a little bit. As far as the electrical connection, I used a 7-bladed trailer light connection in order to provide for the connection for the trolling motor. The trolling motor has 4 wires that go back to control its speed, and the other 2 connections were connected to these 2 wires, which are for a follow-on project. So you simply open it, see if I can get this done with one hand, plug the connection in here, and once I'm underway, that's the connection. Seems to be pretty watertight. Used a good amount of silicone here and pop riveted in place into the hull. It's the only place I use pop rivets. Everything else is using bolts. As far as the steering is concerned, you've got the 2 eye bolts. Pretty standard. See a lot of people on YouTube that have shown how to do this. Went through the hull of the kayak at this point with a 3/32 wire. Drilled a 1/4 inch hole. Used refrigerator waterline tubing. Put it through. And used a lighter in order to fair the end of that so it fits pretty closely. I think that the refrigerator tubing is good because it allows the wire to slide smoothly and won't allow it to bunch up anywhere. Also, I guess theoretically, any water that comes in through this area is going to go inside the refrigerator tubing, not into the hull of the boat. Moving forward, see the speed control. The speed control is mounted right here, left hand side of the cockpit. This was a knob that I got from a used appliance store. Mounted it on the rheostat shaft. The rheostat is mounted inside of the hull of the kayak here. Connected with the U-bolt. You can see the top end of the bolts right here. I had to cut that off. So if you go to cut that off, make sure you put nuts on it. Cut off the end of the threaded sections where you want them, and then use the nut to unscrew in order to clean the threads back up. Works very well. Forward speed. It's got 5 forward and 3 reverse speeds. As far as the steering is concerned, what I did was I took the pedals and cut off the locking tabs here in order to allow the pedals to move forward and aft. Use my feet for that. The shaft comes through and locked off at the appropriate length for my leg length. This is something, if you do this, you probably want to go with a temporary lock on the end of your wire. That way you can get that adjusted to your leg length. If it's too long, you're not going to be very comfortable steering, and if it's too short, well, you're not going to be comfortable steering either. So you want to make sure that you get that at a comfortable level before you actually permanently lock that cable in place. Up here in the bow, you can see access into the battery compartment where I have the small trolling motor battery that's mounted. It was a little difficult trying to figure out how to mount that battery so that it didn't slide around, because the hull of this particular Kayak doesn't have many flat spots anywhere. So if you look inside, you can see what I used was some PVC pipe, which I siliconed in place in order to hold the battery in that upright position and still allow the battery to slide out and come back out through the hatch if I want it. Alright, so there we have it. The Pelican Icon 10-foot motorized kayak is now complete. Now the next phase, because it seems like there's always a next phase, the next part of this whole experiment is going to be the mounting of the 60-watt solar panel on the kayak. I intend to mount it back here over the top of my fishing crate in order to extend the life of the small marine battery. Thank you, YouTubers. Hope you enjoyed this. Look forward to your comments.
He's using nothing but his feet. Ain't he cute?